Hello, friends. Welcome to Worldbuild with us, the podcast where we create fantastic worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty, and I'm here with unabashedly unctuous Chris Prunty. And our special guest today is Daniel Quinn. Daniel, glad to have you back from London. How was it?
It was very
That's great.
Yeah. It's going to get edited out anyway.
Of course. On today's episode, we are talking about historical figures in the land of 1,000 gods. Now, if everyone did their homework, Chris, I'm expecting each of us to come to the table with at least 2 historical figures. We're going to talk about their importance, and we're going to try and world build some stuff to make them, hopefully there's some hooks and cool stuff that we can talk about. So, Daniel, I believe that because, you've been gone for so long, tell us a little bit about your trip and then go right into your historical figure.
One thing I learned is that in London, the alcohol is really, really cheap.
Really?
Like crazy cheap, guys.
That's just because you're not used to like a happy hour situation because Boston doesn't have hot down.
But guys, you can go into like a Tesco and get like a 500 milliliters, I guess it is, of cider for $2.50. So in US dollars, it's like $3.
That seems
$3. That's insane.
It's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay. So you spent the entirety of your London trip sloshed out of your goddamn mind is what you're telling me.
That's the only way to do it. It's so cheap. Why would you not?
Fair enough. All right. So please tell me about your Bacchanalian figure that you've created for this week's episode. Go ahead.
Surprisingly, I guess this guy wouldn't drink, but I was thinking about the Frozen North, the Frozen Wastes, where we had that kind of cult that worships the god behind the portal. And so I was thinking about who would be their cult leader.
Oh, okay.
And now I wanted to leave it open-ended, but my thinking was that this cult leader obviously is attracting people so that they can go and face the god behind the portal, or at least have doppelgangers pop out of it.
Right.
So a few qualities I thought would be important of this cult leader would be, one, he himself is probably a doppelganger, but people don't really know. He probably sincerely believes something good is going on over there and has a sincere belief in whatever his religion is. Mm-hmm. And 3, that people must know him far and wide as someone you can go to have some sort of revelation.
Okay.
But beyond that, it's up in the air for me.
Shit. Gotcha. All right. Chris, it sounds like you... what
Prophet of the portal. Damn,
we can merge them together. Let's merge them.
All right. Well. Okay. Just because there's overlap doesn't mean that they're the same person. Yeah. First of all. So, Chris, I had a segue into Daniel's, but why don't you go ahead and hit me with that?
So, I had Prophet of the Portal. The name that I came up with was Matthew Calmate. Mm-hmm. And one of the historic things that he's behind, or the historical event that he is linked to, is the Great Pilgrimage. And I was going to have it when he had went out and he just took swaths of people as he went through towns and cities, and people would follow him to the portal.
I like it.
All right, yeah. So that actually kind of loops into what I was thinking of.
Did we all just do props to the portal?
Actually, no, but what I did was I left mine open to a lot of questions. So mine is, I just finished rereading Mark Kurlansky's Salt, which is a great historical book all about salt and like its importance and use throughout history. It's a great book, would recommend it. But one thing that kept popping up frequently was the idea of a salt smuggler. And with the salt smuggler, they're often seen as like folk heroes, and they're going through and they're giving these like necessary life-saving things, behind the government's back, because the government was essentially used salt as a tax because it was everyone used it. And so they were like, okay, you're going to pay this much to use our government salt. And because, oftentimes for poor people, that price was outrageous. When you have people who are smuggling salt, they're seen as like, yeah, absolutely, they're heroes. And, the French and the Chinese would often treat them as like, okay, we're going to hide you, just make sure you don't get caught, and, they take care of people. That is kind of the idea that I started with. And I also wanted to do something that wasn't necessarily religious and wasn't necessarily violent, because I feel like everyone talks about the generals and the conquerors way too much. When you look at the really influential people, you see people who are philosophers, you see people who are academics. Those are the people who are really affecting the world. So my guy starts out as a salt smuggler, and which is actually harder to say multiple times.
Salt
in a
smuggler?
row. Yeah, multiple times fast. But anyway, he starts out with that way, and then I had him kind of pivot to being a philosopher type, one who, there's already religions based around all of the gods. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to do something that was a little bit different. And I thought about the idea, like this is a Socrates type, or someone who is sent, or even in a more broad sense, kind of like a Buddha figure, one who wanders the lands and sees a lot of the pain that the people are kind of suffering from, specifically during this era because of a lot of the god wars that are going on, a lot of the war and strife that are going, because, when you think about religious conflict, it's frequent and constant because, belief is a really important and powerful thing. So what happens is this person sees, and right now all I have him kind of named as is the philosopher, because I'm not going to spend my time,
researching a name. And
yeah, exactly. I don't need to do that yet. But for all intents and purposes, he's the philosopher. And his idea is, hey, we should all kind of get together and not murder each other over different gods.
Oh, he's going to be crucified.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing. Like, he's like, yeah. And he kind of breaks down the idea that, all of this is doing is causing suffering. Like, we all acknowledge that the gods have power, and, like, how can we, he essentially believes in this kind of sublime pantheon, this idea that all of the gods can coexist and still have the belief that they all do. And obviously this does not go well because he starts proselytizing this idea, even though it's not a religion, it's more of like a philosophy in
all gods created equal.
More or less. Yeah. But basically he starts proselytizing this in the caliphate of feasts and famines. Again, does not go well at all. But because he started out as a salt smuggler, he has ways of like sneaking in, sneaking out, no problem, until the heat gets so high that he's just going to be assassinated and taken off and like murdered. And just as he's about to do so, he sneaks away using one of his old salt smuggling techniques and, disappears for years, and then comes back years later up in the north, up in, I think I had it in, the Council of Law, because he's like, oh, well, of course, of course I can preach here. I can talk about the philosophy.
Nothing he's doing is illegal.
Is illegal, of course. So he starts getting into it, and he starts gathering a much larger following up in the north because it's, he's not doing anything illegal. He's preaching something that everyone can kind of understand, especially on a base level. Like, poor people understand that this is fucked up what's happening to them. And he starts getting such a large following that the Council of Law starts creating laws to kind of make what he's doing illegal.
So is he Socrates? Because I feel like
So
they're
they
just
don't
gonna,
like-
just like, he's corrupting the youth. Kill him.
More or less, but not quite. They're planning on like getting rid of him, in whatever way possible.
Give him some hemlock.
Exactly. Have him some. That's fine, right? Yeah. No. But here's where it gets interesting for me, because as of to now, he's basically a Christ / Socrates figure. That's cool. And then he calls as many followers as he can. He essentially asks for a pilgrimage to a particular city, the largest that you can possibly gather. And then the day that it's supposed to happen, he doesn't show up. And he is gone, and it causes a massive panic in the city. And so you have a bunch of, people who are all gathered with one singular purpose, but their leader is gone. And so what happens then is there's a schism. Some people think that he's been assassinated. Some people think that this was the plan.
This is the true test of our faith, not faith.
Yeah, right. Conviction. So some people think that this is, he disappeared years ago when the heat was on. This is just a little bit different. But then he never shows up ever again. And he hasn't since then. And I like to think that
A second coming of Salt Socrates.
well, hold on, because I like to think that there are now splinter groups that, and this is actually what's interesting is that this kind of galvanizes the world, or at least this region, to where it's like, yeah, we probably should cool it on the god murder shit. And so that actually, it has an overall calming effect because it's a populist message. It's a good idea. But then there's the mystery of what happens. And that's where factions kind of form. Some people believe that he went to the nation of perfection and becomes the first god pacted of perfection, and sheds his name but becomes this first perfect being. Other people believe that he goes north to the frozen waste and goes to the portal. That's their kind of like way of getting out. And then other people believe still that he's been murdered, and like they take up arms and they are devoted to like essentially equalizing things between those who are faithless and those who aren't. But that's the idea. That's the whole thing, where it's like, okay, cool, you now have this mystery to be solved. And of course, just like real faith, I mean, it's a matter of your interpretation as to what happens. Yeah. And I think that that's part of what we're kind of getting into here, is like, that's the cool part of it.
He actually just slipped in the bathtub. And
I will tell you now, I have no true answer, because that's way more fun. I mean, I have my personal answer, but I won't say that because
very personal.
Yeah,
I like that it gives rise to factions, for example, that would be out to eliminate him and what he stands for. Especially if we first worked inside the Caliphate, they probably have various groups that are devoted to finding and stamping out his beliefs because they are opposed to their gods.
Absolutely. Well, it's not
strike him down. He's too popular, or revenge for what he did here.
Yeah, because he's a problem for any religion that believes that their god is either the one or the most superior.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what I was going for. And again, my idea on a meta level was figuring out a way to solve the idea that religious wars would be constant until the earth was salted, essentially.
Yeah. Oh, I like the metaphor for that. That's good. Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Oh, salted. Hey,
not even
got him
this time. Nice. Not even intentional this time, I swear.
And there could have been, it's even possible that he's not just one person. Maybe he started out that way and he was killed, but now there's many people who take his mantle.
Yeah, Spartacus kind of thing.
Yeah, or what's his
Dread
name?
Pirate Roberts.
That's what I was thinking.
Shit, that was what I was going to say about the someone else going in. Yeah. Which, if you would allow me, I can segue into my guy.
Yeah. Also, well, just real quick, I was thinking with your guy, that's where he's he was a follower of this guy and then saw his opportunity to take people north. And then maybe he was like a sleeper agent the whole time, and this was always his plan, is to bring people up to this weird portal thing. But
maybe
again,
he's actually one of the forgotten things secretly that actually left the surface.
Yeah, there's all
kinds of possibilities.
So before I go into my guy, to touch back on the prophet of the portal, one of the other things that I wanted him known for is he began what is the only known translation of anything that is forgotten.
Ooh, I like that.
Ooh.
And the fact that it's incomplete, even scholars or people who aren't necessarily followers of this person or want to be, they're just there's ruins all over the place. I want to know, if I could learn 100 words in that language, I would be able to uncover so much more.
Remember what Egyptology was like before we had the Rosetta Stone. It was, you could literally make stuff up because no one really knew. And then the Rosetta Stone came out and it was, oh God. It was such a game changer. There was a great little bit with what's his name?
Are you about to bring up a certain religious
Mormon
figure? Yeah.
What was his name?
John Smith.
Yeah. John Smith. Yeah, thank you. John Smith had
I can translate these by looking through a hat.
Yeah, no, he's I can translate Egyptian because God gave me the power because I'm the prophet, yada, yada, yada. And then, obviously, years later, when they retranslate it, it's all bullshit because he never fucking learned.
Whoa. I don't think they actually got their hands on the original golden plates.
I'm not talking about the golden plates.
Oh, just...
There was another bit about some kind of Egyptology shit that he said that, these hieroglyphics mean this.
Oh.
Yeah, it was not golden plate related.
Okay.
This is something else entirely. Yeah. All right, sorry. First of all, before you continue on, I love that idea of having a partial translation because it means that you could. And I also love the idea that the Forgotten's language is so incomprehensible that even with a partial translation, you still don't have anything to work off of. It's still like, oh no, still no idea. Still have no idea.
Is that translation held by the people like where he is?
I wanted to be whatever like part of the building that they made, like the spire or like tower that we had. Part of it is this kind of marker where he chiseled his translation.
Oh, so it's like his Rosetta Stone.
His Rosetta Stone.
That's a good reason for people to go to him. You know?
Yeah. And that's what I wanted. And in that sense, we also have the insidiousness of it. Just like, oh yeah, no, here you go. Here's your right in the portal. And yeah, go back to your people and tell them about the portal.
Yes.
All right, before we get on to yours, Chris, Daniel, do you want to elaborate a little bit more on your Prophet of the Portal? Yeah. Because I feel like there is some conflict between you and Chris, and I want to hash that out. Like, are these separate prophets? Like what kind of false prophet shit are we dealing with there?
I think that they're aligned. You know,
going back to the doppelganger. Yeah. It's literally the same person at two different times.
At two different times, right? Like, because I like the idea that maybe he came, like Chris is saying, at some point to learn about the Forgotten, but this led him through the portal, and now he's come back as something else that has other intentions.
I'm just picturing some historian in this fictional world thousands of years from now, just like, how... Okay, that doesn't make sense. There's no way he could have been at two places at the same exact time, and yet we have two credible accounts of him being on separate continents.
And it may have happened many times too. Like it could be that the existing prophet in present day who's trying to like get people to come to the portal for whatever religion he's constructed, like he's gone through this cycle many times. And so a lot of these things are happening over and over again in that place. So that such a historian would be like, why do these things keep repeating? Why does he keep writing about the same things? You know, those would be interesting problems.
Is it almost like a weird Groundhog Day situation?
It would be weird if maybe like
circle.
He has to keep going through that portal, or people keep going through that portal. I don't know.
There's something really interesting there where it's like a day after tomorrow, or all you need is kill, or Groundhog Day thing, where it's the same guy living the same lifetime over and over again. Maybe that's the prophet that we're dealing with here, where it's like he's spending like it's not like he has godlike powers like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, because he's not like time still continues on, but his life, like once he dies, he just comes out of the portal.
Again.
You know, so he's living in Groundhog Day, but without all of the, you know, like the godlike
or even the awareness. But I like the idea of, at least my version of him is, I like the idea that he sincerely believes in something and he's not aware of the trap he's in. You know,
it's always great when you have a fervent believer. Yeah, because that. Totally some con artist or anything, that's a little bit hollow. But when you have someone who really believes in what they're doing, it's always better, because then you have like all of these options.
You can
fall
argue
from
with
grace,
him, you know,
crisis of faith, all of that. Where a con artist, you can always just be just like, well, fuck it, I'm going.
Yeah.
I think that there's something to that Groundhog Day shit. I really do. We want to run with this idea where like the prophet of the portal
cycle
is just stuck in a time loop, and like he's like I'm sure that he's had a couple of lifetimes where he's like, I don't know anymore, and then he like the first thing he does is just like run out of the portal off a cliff, and he's like, I can't take it, and like loses his shit, and then like 6 bodies later, he's like, okay, this isn't going to end. Let's sit down and figure out.
Or that
one time where he runs out, he's cushioned by his own bodies, and he's just like, oh, fuck.
Well, actually, that's horrifying.
I mean, maybe the Forgotten don't allow that, though.
No. Think about this, though. Think about running out and being like, I'm killing myself. You jump out and like your own previous dead body breaks your fall, and you're just sitting there in like a pile with like legs broken, looking at the dead and decaying corpses of your previous lives.
And in that moment, truth was spoken to me.
No, I think that's probably what happens. That happens to him at some point, and it fucks him up so bad that he's basically like looking. He's on his back, looking backward at the previous corpses for hours before his followers are able to come down and get him. And then they come and get him, they fix his legs up, and he's just silent. And for some reason, like that galvanizes his belief. And he's just changed from that on.
Yeah.
Like, that's when you go from like kind of a crazy person to like, oh, you're a monster now. Like you're completely like that moment changes
Well, this
you.
is literal alienation,
Yeah, absolutely right, and not in like the exile sense, but in
of
like,
the self.
Yes.
Nothing quite like looking at the graying, dying eyes of your own body to galvanize the soul. I have purpose.
Oh man, that's so fucked up, and oh, that's great. I love it. I love that a lot.
Going back to generals and
Yes.
such.
Apologies, Christopher. Go right ahead.
So, don't know if this is stolen. Don't know if this is a word, but it's what my brain of mush decided to poop out.
I'm excited.
Catharsis. The
That is a genuine word, sir.
Damn it! Catharsis, the heretic of flesh.
Catharsis is like an interesting.
It's just what it. Just take it.
Do you know what catharsis means?
I know what cathartic means, and I'm assuming if I poop this out somewhere in there, I do know. Deep down. Do not tell Google to say it out loud.
No. You're pronouncing it correctly.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. No, I'm just like catharsis is like
I mean, it works.
Catharsism?
With the phrase he has. The title.
the process of releasing and thereby providing relief from strong or repressed emotions.
Well, that's going to be a discussion for my therapist.
Especially with the bits about flesh.
Yeah.
Good. Well, yeah.
So let's
were-
take
you
a
were
walk
talk-
down my soul for a
I
moment.
believe you were telling us about your mom. Go ahead.
So yeah, she looks just like my mom, and so
It's weird. Her vagina keeps eating me. It's like this.
Jesus Christ, no, edit that out.
There's nothing Freudian about that.
Jesus.
Look,
Anyhow,
I edit. You don't edit.
I was
edit.
talking to my brain. So it is the reason the reason they are a heretic from the followers of the primordial flesh is the fact that they bend not only just flesh but metal. And I don't mean that in the sense that they can warp metal. I mean, imagine if you had this like gauntlet or piece of skeletal armor that you're like, I don't need bones when I can just tell my flesh to forge around this and be the muscle around the metal.
So you're creating cyborgs.
Yeah, wait, not done. The other fact is it takes the flesh and parts of other animals and everything, where it can like build horn into making armor as well, or chitlin and other like chitin. Thank you. Going back to pronouncing things correctly. But one of the other things...
Chitlins are delicious, by the way. Chitlins are very different.
But one of the things that I wanted to be a weapon when I was thinking of this person, because they are a warrior / general. No, not that. No, you don't need to do hand gestures. But do you know what a bombardier beetle is?
Yeah.
That is a cannon that it has as an arm, essentially.
All right, explain for the listener what a bombardier beetle is.
So in this little beetle are chemicals that when they react inside the beetle, fire boiling hot chemicals that stick to you and burn you. And they're just not... I've never had one, but I've watched videos of them, and it's not a pleasant thing I could imagine happening to you.
I mean, if we've seen Starship Troopers, the giant beetle that sprays down Izzy, that's basically a bombardier beetle, but like...
These are real insects in the world?
Yes.
That is a
Yes.
real thing, yes.
Stranger than
Another
fiction.
reason not to go to Australia.
That and it's on fire.
That's
but
kind of, yeah.
to our Australian listeners, sorry.
We hope you're doing well, guys. Be safe,
Yeah.
like really. Also, there's also stuff like the little, what is it, the shrimp that shoots like pressurized air underwater.
The
mantis
shrimp that it
shrimp,
can
yeah.
poke so fast it boils
They
things.
have to have them
Yeah.
in special aquariums because they break them.
Yeah,
because it can shoot gun arms.
guys, animals are cool. Okay,
Nature is metal.
it's true.
Yes. One of the things that it has been seen as is in countless battles, people have claimed to have killed them. It's been seen throughout several ages of time, and they're seen as almost an ill omen or an avatar of war. And I got the idea from Berserk. I think his name is Zod.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, where people are just like, no, that's not a real person. That's not a real warrior. And it's just like, no, he is, and he's in the other army. And maybe it's true, maybe it's not. The other thing that I got from, I think in Warhammer, which I go back to, I think there's a Tyranid called like One Eye or something, where people have claimed and gotten the body of killing it, but the Tyranids themselves regenerate it somewhere because it's just striking terror. When people see it, it's just like, oh shit. it's fucking that thing. But I also wanted to have the history of, to go back to Dredge Pirate Roberts, is that maybe it's just the Flesh Shapers shaping one special warrior to look this way.
Right.
To inspire fear. But it's also heretical in the sense of going back to bending flesh and metal.
So, okay, so if that's what makes it unique, is the idea that it can bend metal as well, how is it an honorific as opposed to just a particular being? Is there a particular bloodline, or is there a particular fusion that we're talking about? Like, what are we working with here?
So maybe it's an art that's passed on, like from
metal bending from
Yeah,
Avatar.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not to put on that, but in actuality,
I mean, that's more where my brain went initially. So
straight from the very beginning.
when you said
Metal bending?
metal, when you like, oh, it can warp metal as well. I'm like, oh, metal bending. Got
Yeah, you
it.
see, the metal is actually nothing but the distilled iron out of blood.
Okay, sure.
No, it's not. It's not this.
Well, based on what you explained, it's more that the flesh is wrapping around and incorporating these materials, right?
Yeah.
Into it.
So it has like
Yeah.
pre-built. Someone made this kind of thing, and then it fashions its flesh around it.
It's using the environment to create something new.
Yeah.
Itself, rather.
So I just finished reading Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. And this honestly reminds me in a really fucked up way of this thing that is, there are these things called white scientists who are basically just albino alchemists who create flesh monsters, very similar to kind of what we're working with. And one tries to he basically is the awful version of Spider-Man. And the
Venom?
No, worse.
Carnage?
Yeah, worse. The character basically...
Riot.
Oh, God.
Keep going on.
Now we're getting deep. We're getting real deep. No, but what happens is he's experimenting on spiders. He says, oh, I made a web, and then he gets laughed at and tries to commit suicide by drinking all of the alchemical reagents.
Bad idea.
He then transforms into a horrible man spider, and then when the character finds him, he is literally swinging from tree to tree, and he's ejaculating out the spider web. And it's like, oh, that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
Do you mean he's literally ejaculating?
Literally ejaculating it out,
Shouldn't
yes.
he be pooping it?
Yeah.
You would think so.
Couldn't you think of any
but
other place to shoot it from? No.
Look, I would recommend this book. This is just one instance of horror in this particular
I'm going to see if this is an audiobook, because I want to listen to a famous person describe that.
Get ready. Because,
I'm gonna
man.
stick with the Wikipedia summary. Seems more anodyne.
So people, like, when the media push for this particular book came out, it was... Hold on. It was initially marketed as African Game of Thrones. And... again, there's a lot of great African mythology that's baked into it, and it's fantastic. This one part, though, oh boy. But no, they were like, oh yeah, this is going to be turned into a movie or a
Yeah.
TV series. And all I'm thinking throughout a lot of this is like
40-second scene of
Not that part.
oh no, that's the thing. He's not even there's no pleasure out of it. It just so happens that his spider web comes out of his dick, literally comes out of his dick. But anyway, we're getting way too far off topic here.
Wow.
I just needed to express
No,
that.
that's
because
something you should have shared. I understand that.
Flesh shapers. That's what I'm just thinking now. It's like, okay, that's it. He's got a big old arm cannon and a cum
Inherently,
dick.
I don't want the flesh shapers to have spiders, because then I would be afraid of them. But if someone else wants to take up the mantle of adding spiders, go ahead. When my
Chris is
brain
like,
goes
"Not my
there,
world."
I'm just like, no. You give that thing like the spider hair on its arm, and already I'm just like, ew.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oddly enough, all of the thing of flesh cracking bones going into this metal
No
suit
problem
I'm
for
like,
you.
Yeah, it's
So
cool.
You weren't into like the Queen of Blades at all? The whole StarCraft stuff?
No, that's
No?
fine.
She's kinda
Yeah.
spidery.
Yeah, that's a weirder thing
Chris
that once
is
again
like,
we can
"I'm
talk
hot,
at my
it's hot,
therapist.
I tell you, yeah. Chris has dreams where Sarah Kerrigan has his mom's face and spider legs.
Oh my god. God.
Okay.
Oh,
So that's again, we're getting super off topic, but I actually really appreciate that idea, Chris. I think that's a cool idea. I think that we'd have to kind of figure out because my brain is also going to. I love the idea of an honorific. I also just prefer. I think that this thing is old and they keep pushing it out. And it's like covered in scars. I don't like the idea that it's an honorific. I like the idea that it's just one singular thing.
Well, that's the thing. People have theories. It was just like, it can't be the same person. We have recorded in our history that it was killed. It's mounted up on the wall.
We captured it. No, you didn't.
I mean, I like the idea of it being an art, too, at least the process of making it.
Yeah.
Because that
kinda
speaks
cool.
to culture, which is something that lasts over time. And
Totally.
It's historical.
Yeah. All right. Who wants to go next? All right. I'll go next. Then. Fuck
I
you.
mean, technically, I did my 2, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that's what I was saying.
No, it's good. Yeah.
Whew. Okay. Getting away from the giant flesh beast with the dick cannon.
Doesn't have a dick cannon. Once again,
That's
no
in
dick
your
cannon.
head canon.
I was gonna say
I'm gonna
maybe
keep
in your
saying that
version.
every now and
Double
then,
pun.
so you cannot edit it out.
Oh, how's it shooting that net at us?
No, don't.
That's like a double entendre there.
Yeah. Oh no. Literally shooting rope. Yeah. Literally. Oh, head cannon as well. Yeah. Okay. I can get behind that, Daniel. All right. Let's move away from the flesh beasts. I want to talk about my character, who is modeled in part around a real person.
Booker T.
No. Oh man. Look, if you invoke the name of five-time world champion Booker T, I expect a spin-a-rooney out of you at the very least. Daniel has no idea what's going on. Chris and I are in the know. But anyway, no, my real person, do you know who Tamiris is of Scythia?
Is this somehow based around Rome or Carthage?
No.
All right, then no.
Okay. Tamiris of Scythia was a badass warrior lady, obviously from Scythia, who Cyrus II, or Cyrus the Great, who was...
This is Greek.
No.
No? Okay.
Britain.
Greek adjacent, but not Greek. Cyrus the Great was a very powerful, very famous king of the time. He has several important and successful wars that he wages. And then he constantly wants to get into Tamiris' bed. She's like, nah, I'm too much for you. Continues on. And then one day she's like, all right, I'll have the D. Come on over. We're going to drink a whole bunch. And they get so drunk. And then obviously the coup happens where she literally cuts off his head and she is then known as like the king killer from then on.
Oh, here I thought they would find love.
No, not at all. Super badass warrior lady.
Expectations were subverted.
Yeah. Daniel is still on a kick because he's just seen the last Star Wars movie, which he did not like. But
How'd you guess?
we're going to talk about good things like the Mandalorian at some point.
Yeah, we kind of forgot how things were supposed to have sense.
Like in the Mandalorian. But anyway, so in my brain, right, there's this super badass warrior lady who is a combination of Tamiris of Scythia and Alexander the Great. And I put her directly into not the Caliphate of Feasts and Famines. No. I put her as the Empress or the Queen of the God of Hunger. Because I wanted to do like pre-first divine coalescence, right? I wanted it to be like prehistory in a kind of sense, right? Where this was just like, she is the one who essentially united the world, or at least this region in a lot of ways, because she's the conqueror. She's the one who creates the first, the basis for what would be the Caliphate of Feast and Famine, and starts to unite everything. And then she is the one who tragically falls to allow the divine coalescence to happen. She understands that, or rather, she is the endless hunger. She is the literal devourer of worlds. So she's the first person to really, she's a Genghis Khan. She's a Tamiris. She's like a badass conqueror lady. And then she just dies right before the divine coalescence happens. And in fact, it is her death that sparks and kind of gets the idea of the divine coalescence to be necessary on the table.
She's like a major historical figure then. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the point, right?
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
we were all
No, I think
supposed to be
that's
doing.
cool. Yeah, no.
No,
That's why I like it.
Yeah, and also for some of these, I could see holidays and traditions. Like, say, I don't know in your history if she still beheaded someone or did what you were
Who did
doing
she
the basis.
usurp in the beginning?
I'm thinking that instead of, because I want the eater title, and I want her to be like a follower of the god of
She
hunger.
ate someone's god.
I wasn't going to say that, but yes, that is now what happened because that's way cooler. I was going to be like, she just ate like people, but no.
Someone's actual god thing.
Like, I want her to now have eaten a god heart.
yeah.
I don't know what kind of god heart. I don't know
It's
where it
edible.
came from.
It could be an apple.
Maybe it was in someone.
It was edible enough. Yes,
Ew.
exactly. Or it could have been like a bone or marrow or something, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
She ate a god heart, and that makes her even cooler now.
I think that's pretty freaking cool.
God damn it, Daniel. This is what we missed from you. Although we did have Wine Cowboys last episode, and that was
I
really
can't
cool.
wait to listen to those 2 episodes.
You really
I
need
gotta
to
get a
listen.
chance yet.
Skip the first one. The second one's way cooler. No, I'm kidding. It was
If we
a good
play in that
episode,
world,
too.
I want to be a wine roughneck.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
Cowboys? I like this.
It like
It's
it's
what you ship at creme de
menthe.
yeah.
Yes. I like that.
Okay. So yeah, any other questions about?
I mean, she's pretty cool.
I'm gonna call her the God Eater now because she literally had a God heart. So yeah, that's fucking.
I also like that
badass.
she
God's
kinda-
stomach, no.
No, that's dumb.
I like that she kind of like is the precursor
Derogatory.
for coalescence itself, like as a concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or I mean, I guess the practice of doing that.
Yeah,
as an
yeah.
empire, you know.
That's interesting. I'll have to think about this off camera, but like
But-
yeah.
The eating did not kill her.
No,
But it made her, I'm guessing,
it just
it had to have some effect.
I don't know.
Maybe she
Or-
inherited some of its power.
But also, once again,
Oh.
I always like in books or fantasy where part of it is also the rumor that people build
Yeah.
upon. It's just like, she's unstoppable. She hit a god heart.
Oh,
and that
she's
gives her
immortal.
strength.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's immortal because she ate the God heart, and then obviously it didn't work out that way.
Yeah. You know, what is it? Braveheart. Shit lightning bolts and must be 7 feet tall.
Oh yeah. Okay, but I love. Oh man, that eating a God heart is so fucking cool. Like something about that. It's like I didn't
seems so
just
wrong.
destroy it.
Empty
Yeah,
calories though.
yeah. It's like deeply blasphemous and apocryphal, and it's like, oh yeah, oh it's so cool. Oh yes. Okay.
It's like her fuck you moment, essentially.
Basically, yeah. Not only that, but I mean, like, I guess back in the day, you need to kill you need to kill kings in order to get like a rep. In this one, it's like, nah, you got to kill gods. Like, I guess that makes sense because you got to escalate it, right?
And if she did it enough, I feel like that would be the history behind. No, we imprison them.
Oh, so I was just thinking one time, but like the
Yeah,
idea
she
that
does it all the time.
No,
she's doing it multiple times totally makes sense. Yeah.
That makes her really scary to like every other culture.
Oh yeah, she's like the scourge of God type shit, like Temujin used to be called, Genghis Khan. You guys need to read more books. Fuck's
You
sake.
could say that we JJ'd it up.
I'll
in
have
fact.
you know, I am currently watching Marco Polo, so I do get
Oh,
some of what you're saying.
No, that's do they talk about his niece at all?
Is that the one that wrestles someone?
Yeah! Oh man! Okay, his niece is also super cool and like won't like refuses to marry anyone who can't out wrestle her, and she is unmarried up until she dies because no one can beat her at wrestling. It's like, oh, again, real person. This is a real person. So cool.
Really good wrestler.
Yeah. History is full of super cool people, you guys. Come on, you just got to read books. Anyway,
We're not history
Or watch
buffs.
Marco
you
Polo.
should be. Just read books.
There are other books that can read besides history.
Yeah, but they're not as interesting. Anyway, history books just take all of the coolest parts from all of history and distill them into like various bite-sized bits.
The only problem is the authors who have a tedious writing style.
That's why you skip those motherfuckers and you find the good shit, like Mark Kurlansky Yeah, listen to a fucking Dan Carlin podcast.
I-
For fuck's
I-
sake.
Those are good.
I like listening to the modern history ones that talk about conspiracy theories.
That's not modern history.
It is modern
It is
history.
not modern history.
It
you son of a
is.
bitch. All right, that was okay. That's the.
Let me tell you about the Iran-Contra deal.
Daniel, why don't you go ahead and tell us about our final historical figure of the night? Please go right ahead.
So
Get
I
us
need-
away from Iran Contra.
I need a little bit of
It's topical, damn it.
reminding of. I remember in the Frozen North again, which is one of my favorite places.
Really, you're doing Frozen North twice?
Yeah.
Okay.
Doubling down.
Wasn't it an area where there's not really influence of the gods as much?
I
We
believe.
had spoken
Did
that
we
there was a
establish that?
void of
A
godness.
void of gods. Okay.
Yeah, I think
then
that was
this could work.
established.
Okay. So I was thinking about the anathemas that are out there that people that people hunt. We had this Viking
Yeah.
culture that's out there. So I thought, well, what binds the Viking people together? And I thought perhaps,
Ooh, I'm getting excited.
and it says also influenced by the Mandalorian here, to be fair. But I thought perhaps
The
there
good
is
part of the Star Wars stuff. That's
the only
happening
good
now,
stuff.
yes.
Yeah, is that
Okay, that's not true. The original trilogy still
well,
exists.
besides the OT, of
Yeah.
course. So I'm thinking perhaps there is a figure who came to the frozen wastes and who was God pacted at some point, and who, for whatever reason, lost her connection to her gods, and so only a piece of that power is still left with her. But she hunts her people hunt the anathemas to take pieces of them to reclaim the god bits that are in them.
Oh, so she
Yeah.
believes, and her people probably believe that the anathema are what stops the god, like what stops the magic from existing in the Frozen North.
Right.
And that's why they hunt them.
Yeah.
And
So they take pieces out of them and fashion them into their weapons.
I was
and
about to
such.
say
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah,
make
of
like the
course, yeah.
Mandalorian
Like they make the
armor
Mandalorian kind of
references
stuff.
that
So,
you-
Yeah,
so
yeah.
not only, so it's a religious experience to hunt them down
Yeah.
as well. That's super cool.
And her role as a caretaker passes on from one to the next.
You're also you're a huge Star Wars fan, I'm assuming.
I
So
like Star
so
Wars.
the whole
No, that's not true. He
I'm a
only
Star
likes
Trek
the
fan.
original trilogy and the Mandalorian.
fair, yeah.
So
Okay.
in terms of
No, no,
quantity, he only likes about
but
less,
going
he
back
likes a
three,
third
two-
of it.
to
Yeah,
Legends
yeah.
and such
Yes,
with the
I
Mandalorians
like to
riding
use
those
stuff. Absolutely, yeah.
the lizards.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, totally. Yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean from the Star Wars Christmas special?
Including I
Happy Life
prefer
Day.
the Star Wars Christmas special to the entire new Disney trilogy. Just to be clear.
we can't get into
Just
this
so
thing.
we can be clear about
we
that.
can't get into this.
I'd rather watch that again.
To be fair, I think I found a bit of it on YouTube, and it was actually
It's not bad.
It was horribly entertaining.
It's great.
It really. So here's the thing.
It was like watching goblins.
no. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
It drags if you watch
really
it
long.
all in one shot. It drags
Yeah.
because not only that, it gets boring after okay. I
But the
don't
cooking
care.
scene, that's like the best
With B.
part.
Arthur?
The comedian is in the cooking thing.
B. Arthur was okay.
It was great. It was so
No,
good.
but it no.
You take that back about B. Arthur.
I love B. Arthur.
That
She is
scene-
always great.
She's the best thing about Golden Girls.
There's more
God
drama
damn it.
in that scene than the entirety of the Disney trilogy.
That
just,
is-
just so you understand
Daniel,
my position.
okay, what else can we talk about the lady in the wastes? Can we please?
So like I think
Just watch more movies with Daniel in general, because he shits on them so hard.
Don't though, because you're like, oh, Daniel, let's watch this amazing movie that I love, and he'll be like, this is shit, and then you're like, oh, I just want to punch you now, Daniel.
so. This
Makes
woman,
me feel something.
yeah. At least I make you feel hate more than the Emperor did in these new movies.
Jesus.
No,
Jesus Christ, Daniel.
no. This
run
woman,
through
I'm
you.
thinking, it could. I liked. For some reason, I'm drawn to it being a woman in particular, but I guess the caretaker role could move on to whomever serves that particular cultural role.
Fair enough.
Of uniting the people.
Kind of like the blacksmith in Mandalorian.
Exactly. So I kind of like that because it subverts expectations, but it could be a different gender, of course.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the specific one that
Yes.
started it.
Oh,
it was
historically. Oh, yeah.
Historically,
Yeah. So I for some reason I think it's important that she was God pacted and was connected to a particular god and then lost that. And so whether it's because maybe she was taken as a slave or captured and they shipwrecked in the north, and so she had to kind of reclaim her faith.
So she's basically a foreigner as well.
Yeah, I don't think
Okay.
she's from the north. I think that she ended up there and she encountered these creatures and saw that in them there is fragments of gods.
Do you guys know about the Samanosuke, the Black Samurai of Japan?
I've heard of, I've actually glanced at a wiki page of this.
So yeah, that was a thing that happened. There was like a legit African guy from Africa, black skinned, ends up in Japan and becomes a samurai. And it's like, that's in my brain. That's the type of shit that's happening.
Maybe it's
up in the
connected
frozen
to your
north.
And then he
Empress.
went after a headband for the number 1 spot.
Oh my God. That was a cowboy. That was a cowboy. What are you talking about?
I hate myself.
I hate you. Daniel makes me feel hate. You make me feel hate towards you specifically.
Together we can destroy the empire.
You are a black hole
Together.
of hatred and agony. I hate you both.
Together we can be more powerful than we possibly imagined.
You can be more powerful than the Disney
The
trilogy.
combined.
Listen, it's the rule of 2.
Yes.
I fucking hate you both. And that's where we're going to end the podcast.
No, wait. The one last thing I was going to say is perhaps she's connected to her background. The very first one is somehow connected to your Empress.
How so?
In the sense that what she seems to be doing in the Frozen North is taking bits of other things and consuming them into her own culture. And that's what the Empress initially did, is she ate another god.
Interesting.
So maybe her practice is in some way derived to that same philosophy.
Or at least they knew about that.
Yeah.
Like they had that idea in their mind before that happened.
Right.
Okay.
This person is the Kubla to his Genghis.
Genghis.
I actually thought I was saying that, and that is what came out.
Okay.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah, but, although Kubla sucked, just so we're clear, Kubla sucks way harder than Genghis did.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, this person didn't start an empire. They still accomplished it. Kubla accomplished more than I ever will. You don't hate on Kubla.
I will hate on Kubla. No, okay.
Wait,
fine,
one
fine,
last
fine.
thing that I need to say.
Can we make it? I want it to be similar in that there's influence there.
Yeah.
I don't want it to necessarily
Not one to
be.
one.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't
It's
want.
more
I
like
don't
not a
she
descendant.
knows about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that her knowing about it
Right.
makes a lot more sense than her being
descended in any way.
No, not even descendant. I don't even want her from the same country. I want her from like different.
I just like the idea that's like an old mythological thing that was done by this really powerful character. And she's like, maybe we can be part of our culture.
We should have it be something like the God of the Forge, who are now the Empire of Embers, because their whole power is rebirth and stuff like that. So the idea that she can take that tenet, take that idea, and then bring it up north is like, I'm rebirthing this nation, et cetera, et cetera.
And literally with those creatures she's capturing and taking.
And
Yeah.
these anathema hunters, I think we spoke at one point, either it was the Bank of Death or these people, someone was eating them.
Oh.
Someone was eating
I
the
did
anathema
remember that.
beasts.
Oh no!
Was it in Caliphate?
It was the Caliphate because it was like this is
It's a rare exotic thing.
Exactly,
Yeah,
it's the exotic thing, and again, feast and everything like
Going back, they got to do something, those hunters.
So maybe they
But-
got that practice from what she does.
I mean, you
like,
bring one who's a cook.
Yeah, right.
and then you see like the cultural influence go from like middle south up to the north, and then trickles down to the south again.
Yeah.
But it's like all a fucked up game of telephone type thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like you weren't supposed to eat them. You're supposed to forge them.
And again, that would make sense because the god of the forge, the god of the forge. Like, if she carries the tenet of rebirth and forging stuff again, that totally makes sense.
Right.
Okay, cool. All right, folks, so that's going to wrap it up for this episode. I think it's been a pretty successful episode. Daniel, we're happy to have you back. Star Wars hate and all.
Yep.
I know you're not a Star Wars fan, but that's
what I'm
fine.
here
You dick.
Anyway,
I'm really not.
at this point, no. You hate more than you like.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
All right, so we will see you guys next week. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, if you want to, send a death threat at Daniel for hating Star Wars as much as he does,
Please do.
please go ahead and send that to worldbuildwithus@gmail.com. If you have any questions or if you want to send anything to us, just let us know. I mean, we're always open. Just remember that have a good week. We love you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.